Okay, so the exam you'll exactly have 38 minutes. So there are you'll need to start exactly at 1 p.m. You'll be able to see one question at a time, so you will not be able to go back. Just remember that this is closed neighbor, okay? So you can't share or be taking the exam with anybody else, okay? Don't uh, do that. In other words, so please make sure that you do not take the exam with anyone else. So you can do the math about how many questions. There's 25 total questions, and it's chapters 1 through 3. Okay, and that's basically there'll be some exams where there'll be more chapters, but this one is going to be 3. Um, and the rest of the time, I think those are the most important things. So just again, just to reiterate, the exam, you have to start taking it at 1 p.m., okay? So just make sure, just like you're coming to class, just get somewhere where you can take it, and then you'll have about 38 minutes, okay? Um, the other stuff now, what we'll do is basically I'm gonna run through the topics. Please, this is just for your section, so please don't share with anyone else. Um, and yeah, so I'm just gonna try to give you again. I can't, I'm not gonna give you in detail what exactly every single question, but I'll try to give you just a rundown of the topics again, just to hopefully help direct your attention a little bit more. And then I'll purposely just kind of leave it at that. And then that should be more than enough based on that, plus your class and the assignments that you've already been doing. So then you should be good to go, all right? And then I assume by now everyone's been reading the chapters. So that also is very helpful for this class because like, again, some classes, they may not use the textbook. We use the textbook for every single chapter. So that's where all this stuff is coming from. All right, so basically, you want to keep in mind, we have kind of a database schema that we went through for university. You'll want to go through that again, understand how the tables fit together, and what types of uh, how the database stores student and course information. You'll want to think about how you would get information from that database and update information, okay, from that database. How our constraints play into those types of operations. Um, you'll want to think about, um, like if you needed to, we did this several times in class, if you need to find a specific data point within the table, the tables that are visible. And we went through some examples, some exercises of that. So that, is a pretty typical thing. Um, you'll want to be able to explain the relationships, between the tables. Um, you will, yeah, and then again, there's just several different constraints that you want to keep in mind. So look over those. Um, understand the definitions, the terminology, the basic stuff. That's more of less so of interpreting, but more of just understanding how you would describe a specific entity or a specific relationship. Um, and think about abstraction. We talked about that and how it relates to a database, and how that plays into integrity and um, delivery of data. Okay. Um, you'll want to think about why a database is set up in the way it is to uniquely describe rows data within the table, um, and what those terms are called when you have a database with many tables versus a database with maybe a few tables. There's actually terms we've went over, and the implication of those terms for database design. There'll be questions about, I already mentioned a schema. how does uh and then also like thinking about database states and database um let me go through here. um Database states and how individuals work on those different, what parts would they might work on for a database, the different types of systems, maybe NoSQL versus SQL. Let's see here. Uh, how the database system environment, um, how you would think about self-describing nature of a database, uh, things like also a data dictionary, data catalog is what we went over. What is that? What's the purpose there? Um, the different types of um, language operations for a database system. So we went through some stuff there. Um, how you would think about like looking at a diagram. So lots of figures and diagrams, you'll need to interpret that. Um, so like attributes and um, how they can be simple or more involved. Um, how you how you pull out different attributes, like how you interpret the an attribute within a diagram, okay, like an ER diagram. Um, how are entities also described within an ER diagram? And then the cardinality of ER diagrams is going to play a role actually not only in this exam, but again, now it's going to build on for the rest of the course. Um, let me see if I can give you a few more things to just think about here. Um, Redundancy and how that plays into a database design. Okay. Um, okay, let's see here. Um, Let me go on to the next one. So what is the data model and how you would think about dynamic aspects of the data model? Um, there's different architectures for database. We briefly talked a little bit about that. Um, and then there's interfaces that you use with database systems. Uh, where's the data stored when you put it on your how is it stored? In other words, I'll just say that. Um, and are there different system utilities that help you get the data and actually run a query? Like what are the different components that allow you to do that? When you're running your MySQL, you already installed it. I'm sure you've done a few queries or maybe loaded the data. Like what are the components working in the background to make that happen? Let's see here. Let's keep going. So yeah, again, just look over the ER. That's all of chapter 3 is the ER model, and the different components of the ER model. How you basically get from the mini world, as the textbook calls it, to a physical design. We talked about the different types of values, like you can have null values, entity types and entity sets. That will be important to know. Um, Role relationships, in other words, role names, and what is a recursive relationship? We looked at some diagrams that kind of explain that. Um, and then, yeah, proper naming for key schemas constructs uh, would be just good to know. Um, and I think those are the main things from the chapter 3. Those are the main topics that we're actually gonna do. So, so it's not that you know, well, actually, we try to break up these exams, so we're not hitting you with just tons and tons of material. The next one will have a few more chapters, but this one hopefully will allow you to get a good flavor for how the exams will go. From here on out, it'll basically be similar process. Um, There'll be a lot. I see the question in the chat. There'll be a lot from the slides, but definitely the book is fair game. I would say there's not a lot outside of the textbook though. So like the textbook is the main source. But yeah, you definitely like as I mentioned a few times already, make sure you go through the textbook, read that. I definitely try to hit the highlights, you know, in class for sure. Um, and yeah, that's kind of it. Danielle or Danielle, I think it was from the question. So that's basically it. I talked about the logistics. I talked about some ideas for the content. I'll just ask you, and now again, I'm not gonna go in any much more detail, but I just want to make sure. Do you have any questions, logistic wise, or what do you? Okay, so you can use your textbook and notes, but here's what I'm gonna say is that you really want to know this stuff like offhand. So don't think that you're gonna be able to quickly look it up because it's not a real good strategy to do. Okay. But definitely no, you cannot work with someone else. Okay. Don't work with your buddy. This as they say, open book but closed neighbor, okay? All right, Evan. Other questions? Did that help, Evan? Okay, sure. All right. Other questions? All right. So it's in the yeah, 38 minutes. All right. So you'll see the time when it comes. It's just like you won't be able to go back to questions. Okay. So you got to kind of just stay on it, keep a good pace. Okay. So you only see one question at a time, right? Alvin. All right. You bet. All right. Other questions, other comments?
So if we wanted to get back to that question, we can't do that. Like once.
Right, right. So it's yeah. So I mean, yeah, I was gonna make this lockdown browser, but for now we'll just do that. So just make sure that yeah, you just think about the answer and then go forward, okay? Just want to try to keep as much integrity for the quiz as possible.
And how many questions are there?
25. 25 roughly. Yeah, 25.
Okay, and 38.
There most of them will be in that ballpark. All right. Okay. Other questions? Other comments? Hope everyone is having a good semester so far. Yeah, try yeah, it's this one will be all multiple choice, but you'll definitely want to be able to interpret like diagrams and figures. The next one, you know, you'll have more SQL like language questions, and we'll talk about that when that comes down. All right, Brandon. Other questions? Oh, sure. Yeah, like I said, guys, and else, everyone, just yeah, just make sure you read over the book. Yeah, it's not. I definitely don't have any like hidden tricks or anything. There's nothing like gonna be outside really of the textbook. The only reason I don't say it's absolute because I often will find examples that I bring into class to help explain a concept in a book because it does get very dry looking at a bunch of text. So I'll find like a little visual or diagram, or we've even done a lot of exercises in class. So that stuff, you know, definitely is all fair game too, you know. But I usually point that out and say, oh, this like we did that baseball team database design. We pulled SQL up and went through some aggregate functions. Like all that stuff is, definitely fair game. But hopefully that's more of just like informing you, giving you a little bit better context, if anything. Yeah, because some of the paragraphs, it can get really dry. All right. Other questions, other comments? You just make sure, let me just do one other thing while we're just hanging out here for a minute or two. So the syllabus, let's look ahead, just so we're all on the same page. So you'll take, you got the weekend to study up, review a few things, your notes, and then we'll get into chapter 4 on the end of February 23, and then you'll do assignment 3 on February 28. So just as always, just keep up with your assignments. Those are, as you've seen, we're in a lecture hall, so those are really a part of your hands-on experience. We'll do a project, which is super cool later on. But the assignment, I really try to not even so much like paper and pen. I wanted to actually get you to, install MySQL, run queries, and you'll see like all that. So this was the best way me and my other colleague thought about doing that, and I think it's worked pretty well so far. So just keep up with the assignments, and then we'll continue to talk about it in class. All right. So yeah, so I think the class sessions have been pretty useful so far. So are there questions going to be? Yeah, there'll definitely be, I think the assignments, that's why I keep saying the assignments. Yeah, the questions will definitely do the assignments. You'll definitely know, like they'll talk about why, like the MySQL architecture, like they touched on that a little bit in your first assignment. That will help you, if you're doing the assignment, just like any class, you do the assignment's going to help you for some maybe 1 or 2 questions in the quiz that we have. All right. Does that help, Tim? All right, sure. All right. So that's kind of the agenda. Yeah, if you've just make sure you look over, and you should be all set for the quiz. I call it an exam, but they're actually kind of smaller chunks. So um, yeah, that's pretty much the rundown. So hopefully that's not too crazy. Should be very manageable. Um, and yeah, let me just do one last round, one last call out to see if you have any other questions or comments right now. All right, sounds like everyone is doing pretty good. Um, so I think that's all I got right now. I assume again that I got a few just a question about how to install MySQL. I'm sure everyone's worked through their installation problem troubleshooting. That's typical. I'm sure everyone here has faced problems when you're trying to install a program or do a language, run a language command or something like that. So I sent a resource back, and I assume that the student got it in. But yeah, just keep bringing your questions for the assignments to class, and we'll, if something comes up, I'm always I would like to hear about that, and we'll try to work through it, talk about it together. I think that's good for everyone, actually. Um, with that being said, I think that's it on my end. So you're free to go. I hope you have a good weekend, and I'll just stick around for a minute if anyone else has anything else they want to ask. All right. Have a good one. Sure, you bet. All right.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, you bet. Take care. You too. Is if anyone else has another question they want to ask, just let me know. Right. Okay. So from the iPhone, okay. Oh, you bet. Sure, no problem. All right. Surab, Patrick, Nathan, Kenny, Ishmael, any other questions? Thoughts? Everyone good?
So just to double check, what's
Yeah.
exactly on the exam again,
What's exactly on it?
or what's it covering?
What's it covering? The first three chapters. So I
Okay.
went through the first 20 minutes of that. I don't know if you maybe got in late. But yeah, the first three chapters, and I kind of just went through all the different topics. Um, did you catch that in the beginning?
Yeah, sorry, I was responding to someone's message about a code question, so I
Okay.
wasn't. Yeah, it didn't have all my attention.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I kind of went through all the topics like again, cardinality, ER diagrams, schema, integrity, constraints. Uh, yeah, those are some of the main ones that
Okay.
I talked about.
But if I just review from the book, I should be fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where it's all coming from, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Patrick, any other questions?
I think that's it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm
Actually,
sorry. I thought I was talking to someone else.
No.
No, go ahead. No worries. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Patrick.
And also, is it covering the stuff from the videos?
Yeah, definitely. Someone else asked this question earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, assignments is fair game. Like if I bring
Okay.
in like a database, so we did that example in class, that's all fair game, we did a baseball team example.
Yeah.
That's, that type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
All right, you bet. Take care. All right, Kenny, Nathan, how you doing? Any other questions? You good? Yeah, sure. No problem. Kenny, are you doing okay? Any other questions?